Hello class, we're about to start Unit 6, percent. Section A, converting between percent, fraction, and decimal notation. Okay, first we go from percent to a fraction. 25% means 25 out of 100, or 25 over 100, which reduces to 1/4. Examples, write each percent as a fraction in lowest terms. So 45% is the same as saying 45 over 100 because percent means out of 100. So now we can simplify 45 over 100 by dividing the numerator and denominator by 5. 45 divided by 5 will give us 9, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. So our final answer is 9 over 20. Now we go to 8%. That means 8 over 100. Now 8 and 100 both has 4 in common. So we'll divide the numerator and denominator by 4, and that will give us 2 over 25. Now, we scroll down. Percent to decimal. 25% means 25 out of 100, or 25 over 100, which divides out 25 divided by 100 to 0.25. Shortcut, the result of dividing by 100 is that the decimal moves 2 places to the left. Examples, write each percent as a decimal. So let's watch this here. It says here, the shortcut. It says the result of dividing by 100 is that the decimal moves 2 places to the left. So what we would do here is 45% means 45 over 100. So we can write 45, and remember, this means that the decimal moves 2 places to the left. So our final answer would be 0.45. Now we have 8%. It means 8 out of 100. So we will write 8, and remember, that means our decimal will move 2 places to the left. So our final answer would be 0.08. Now, we scroll down here to decimal to a percent. It says reverse the previous process, so multiply by 100%. Shortcut, the result of multiplying by 100% is that the decimal moves 2 places to the right. Examples, write each decimal as a percent. Now we have 0.683. We want to write this as a percent. So we will move this decimal 2 places to the right, which would give us 68.3, and we must write the percent sign at the end. Now we have 0.7. We want to change that to a percent. We move that decimal 2 places to the right, and that would give us 70, and we put our percent sign at the end. So it's 70%. Now we come down here to fraction to a percent. It says divide out the fraction to get a decimal first, then multiply by 100%, or move the decimal 2 places to the right. Examples, write each fraction as a percent. So first let's change this to a decimal. We would take 8 into 5. I usually like to at least put 2 zeros here, but we may need more or less. So let's check. 8 goes into 5 0 times. 8 goes into 50 6 times. 6 times 8 is 48. 50 minus 48 is 2. Bring down your 0. 8 goes into 20 twice. 2 times 8 is 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. Add another 0. Bring down your 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. And we have no remainder. Now, we want to write this decimal as a percent. Now remember, once we get this answer here, this is 0.625. All we have to do is move this decimal 2 places to the right, which will give us 62.5, and put our percent sign at the end, and we're done. Now we go here to 2/11. It says round to the nearest tenth of a percent. Okay, we will address that later, but let's start by changing this fraction to a decimal. So we have 11 into 2, we'll put 0.00. 11 goes into 2 0 times. 11 goes into 20 once. So we add 20 minus 11, which will give us 9. Bring down our 0. 11 goes into 90 8 times. 90 minus 88 will give us 2. We'll add a 0. 11 goes into 20 one time. And what we're noticing here is we're going to get a repeat of what we already have done, because then it'll be 8. So this is what we need to do. When it says round to the nearest tenth of a percent, we know to change this decimal here to a percent, we have to move this decimal 2 places to the right. So actually the third digit is considered to be the 10th place for a percent. So what we would have to do is to go to the hundredths place, which would be the 4th place behind the decimal, which I already stated to you that it will repeat. So it'll end up being 8. So 8 times 11 is 88. And we know 90 minus 88 will give us 2. So we'll move this decimal 2 places to the right. So we'll have 18.18%. But remember, we want to round to the nearest tenth of a percent. So we know this 1 is in a tenths place. So the digit right to the right of that 1 is an 8. And we know if it's between 5 to 9, we will round this number up. So it'll be 18.2%. And it's actually an approximation. Now we scroll down. It says solving percent problems. Translate each problem to the percent equation. We have A equals P times B. Okay, now, so A is the amount, is equals, percent is, you will put that in decimal form, of means multiplication, and B is the base, which is the total. So it says, what is 15% of 40? Now, we don't know what this is, so what will give us X? Is, we know, means equal. 15%, we need to write that as a decimal, which would be 0.15, as you would drop the percent and move your decimal 2 places to the left. Of, we know, means multiplication, and 40 is just 40. So now we'll take 0.15 times 40. So what we could do is this here. We could write this off to the side and take 15 times 40. We'll drop the decimal. So this would be 0. Add a 0 here. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. So this would give us 600. Now remember, we had 2 digits behind the decimal, so this would give us 6.00, which is just 6. So your answer is 6. Now we go to the next problem. 32% of what number is 8? Now we know we will rewrite 32% as 0.32. Of means multiplication. Now we have what number here? So what number is your X? Is means equal, and we know 8 is just 8. So now we will have 0.32x is equal to 8. We'll divide each side by 0.32. And we will have x is equal to. Now remember, we learned this in previous sections, that when we are dividing or have a fraction with our denominator having a decimal, we have to move that decimal over until this becomes a whole number. So we have to move it over twice here, and we have to move this decimal twice here. So this will end up being 800 over 32. Now we can simplify this. We could divide the numerator and denominator both by 8. And 800 divided by 8 we know is 100. And 32 divided by 8 we know is 4. Now 100 divided by 4 we know is just 25. So our final answer is 25. Now we have our next problem. It says, what is 180% of 36? So we know what is X, is equal, 180% written as a decimal. Remember, we would take the decimal, which is assumed to be at the end, move it 2 places to the left. So it'll be 1.8, or you could write 1.80. Of means multiplication, and 36. So now we need to go off to the side here and take 18 times 36. 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 4 is 10. Add a 0 here. 3 times 8 is 24. Carry your 2. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. So this would give us 648. Well, remember, we had one digit behind the decimal, so it's 64.8. So our answer is x equals 64.8. Now, we have our next problem. It says 9 is what percent, which would be x, of means multiplication, and 12 is 12. So this would be 9 equals 12x. We'll divide each side by 12. And we know 9 and 12, they both have 3 in common. So we'll divide the numerator and denominator by 3. So this would be 3/4 equals x. Now, if this asks what number, we would be finished, or we would just have to change it to a decimal. But this asks what percent. So we need to change this fraction to a percent. So we would take 4 into 3. We'll make it 3.00. Bring up our decimal. 4 goes into 3 0 times. 4 goes into 37 times. 7 times 4 is 28. 30 minus 28 is 2. Bring down to 0. 4 goes into 25 times. 5 times 4 is 20. We have no remainder here. So now we want to change this decimal to a percent. So we have 0.75. We will move this decimal 2 places to the right, and our final answer would be 75%. Now we scroll down to section C. During the flu epidemic, 68% of a company's employees took sick leave. If the company employs 700 people, how many took sick leave? So we have 68%, which we would write as a decimal, 0.68. And the company employs 700 people, so we'll multiply that by 700, and this would determine how many people took sick leave. So now, what we could do is we could multiply this out. We could take 700 times 68. We're dropping a decimal. That would give us 0056. We'll add a 0 here, and then 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 0 is 0, and 6 times 7 is 42. So to give us 47,600. Well, remember, we had 2 digits behind the decimal here, so it'll be 476. So we will write 476 took sick leave. And that is our final answer. Number 2, it says, during a flu epidemic, 68% of a company's employees took sick leave. If 170 people took sick leave, how many people are employed by the company? So basically what we need to do is we need to take 68% or 0.68 of the amount of people employed by the company is supposed to equal 170 people. Because remember, it says 68% of the company's employees took sick leave, and we're trying to find out how many people are employed. So it's 68% of the amount of employees is supposed to equal 170. So we divide each side by 0.68 or 0.68, and we will have x here on the left, and we know we have to move this decimal 2 places to the right, and this decimal 2 places to the right. So it'll be 17,000 over 68. Now both of these numbers here, we could divide both of well, we could just go ahead and do this as a decimal. We'll take 68 into 17,000. 68 goes into 170 twice. 2 times 8 is 16, carry our 1. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 170 minus 136 is 34. We'll bring down our 0. 68 goes into 340 5 times. 5 times 68 is 340. So let me write this over here. That would give us 0. 68 goes into 0 times. So our final answer here is 250 employees. And that is our final answer.